How many vaccines do we have in Ghana? Have we had? I have been vaccinated. How many vaccines have we had in Ghana?
Well, we've so far received close to 1.3 million doses. We had a first 600 doses from COVAX. We've had 315 support from Antigen. We also have another 150 or so thousand from the Aboagye. So that's the total number we have had, including the 20,000 Sputnik, which has always been used to vaccinate. So far, we have vaccinated about 1,271,000 people. 850 of them had their first dose. 450 had it fully vaccinated. So we have about 450 to 500,000 people awaiting their second dose.
So you have 140,000 people vaccinated in full?
1.3 million.
No, that's first dose or second dose?
Now for the first dose, it's about 450,000.
450,000. So that's second dose, fully vaccinated.
Fully vaccinated.
Wow. And then how many vaccinated for one dose? Half vaccinated?
About 805,000.
805. Okay. So at this rate, are we going to be able to do the president's 20 million?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the issue is about when we get a vaccine. We have a very, very solid deployment system. We can do, even for where we take all our data electronically, we can still do about 250,000 doses a week. The last 2020, in the midst of COVID, we vaccinated about 6 million people with yellow fever in 4 days. So
now say that again. In 2020,
yes,
you vaccinated 6 million people in Ghana.
Oh yes, in 4 days.
In 4 days.
Yes.
For yellow fever.
Yeah, yes, that's how our deployment machinery is as a Ghana Health Service.
Oh, that's impressive.
So we have 20 million.
Did you say it again?
Today.
6 million in 4 days.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes, yes.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
And so
that's a nationwide President Akufo taking his vaccine over there.
And so
President Akufo, come back to the studio. Let's get the facts of what Doc is saying. You have capacity to vaccinate 4 million people, 6 million people in 4 days.
4 days for yellow fever.
I can't believe that.
And so even with COVID and all the excessive data we take, all things being equal, even when we're doing about few regions around, we're able to do about 250,000 in a week. And that is why other countries who could not use their vaccine and about to expire, they were brought to Ghana. And so with the president's promise, we are in the middle of August. We are not yet in the middle of August. If we have all the vaccines today, we can still make it before December. So the only problem is where getting the vaccine.
Is that becoming a difficult problem? Because I've heard that people say that vaccine is becoming a nationalistic. I've heard the foreign minister complain about it. So is it becoming a genuine global problem that countries who do not produce vaccine can't get it? I know that Canada had a difficulty like that. Now they are resolved. But is it that countries that do not produce vaccine, which is the overwhelming majority of countries in the world, are finding it difficult to procure the vaccine?
Yes, there's obviously not enough vaccines for everybody. I mean, this is a pandemic that has affected every country. And there's also scramble for vaccine. Some richer countries have pre-financed the production of the vaccines, and so they also had some allocation. So it becomes more difficult for some other countries to be able to access. And I'll give a typical example. We had a deal that Covishield, that is the Indian Serum Institute, was going to provide us with vaccine. When the Indian crisis came up, the government said you cannot export.
When the Delta came up?
When the Indian crisis,
even before Delta
came in. Yes, before Delta. I mean, Delta was discovered in India, not necessarily came from India, but was first discovered in India as part of the crisis. The government said then you can't export any vaccine out of this country until we are fully covered, even though Serum Institute is a private company. So that's how the situation is. So the challenge is, if you get a vaccine, we can deploy. And I can imagine that between March, when the crisis was over, and if we had vaccines, I'm sure our situation today will be very, very different if, from what it is now, if we had vaccinated enough people. So far, about less than 5% of the those people who are qualified to be vaccinated are vaccinated, and so that is everybody vulnerable for the transmission of the virus and the infection.
Wow. How did we get so many cases rising up again? We are now almost at, what's today's count? Do you know?
Today's count is about 6,700. The previous report was about 6,900, almost 7,000. That is because the number we are reporting today is slightly lower than those who have recovered, and so the numbers dropped from 6,900 to about 6,700 as our key active cases now.
So we have experienced a slight drop between yesterday and today?
No, between 14 days ago.
Or it comes every 14 days?
Yeah, every 14 days as people recover. And
yeah,
so that's our recovery policy. And so if you take out those
what happened? Where is it? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, number one, there were 4 core issues. Most of the countries around us had experienced their surge a few months even before Ghana became vulnerable. Our adherence to protocol is very low. People are not wearing the mask. And you heard on radio, people are saying that they don't even believe that the disease exists. And secondly, we also have had some importation into the country across those countries I mentioned. And then finally, the appearance of the Delta, which is a much efficient transmitter. And so if I have one here, the chance that I will transmit to other people is much higher than the previous and other alpha and other strains that we've had in the virus. So we are having a more efficient virus, and which has now become the dominant variant in Ghana now. Previous was the alpha, that is the UK variant. But as we speak now, particularly in Accra, from our study, our genomic sequences shows us that Delta is the most dominant variant currently in circulation.
Have we overcome the crisis at the airport? A week ago or so, we had a lot of videos on social media, people complaining, and we saw some of your people, Dr. Okoboy in particular, make mention of him, try to clarify the situation. Have we had some peace and clarity at the airport with our brothers who live abroad?
Well, I think people have come to accept the policy as it is. You see, we have about 2,000 people get into the country, and if 50 tests per day, arrivals.
At the Kotoka Airport?
Yes.
2,000 arrivals per day?
Yes, 1,800, 2,000.
Okay.
So if you have 20 people positive, 50 people positive, what it means is that over 1,900 people turn negative.
Yes.
And we set up that system primarily to be able to pick up people who are positive and reduce the entry, importation into the country. And so it was nothing astronomous. And if you look at the trajectory of the report we get from the airport, it always reflects when there's an outbreak in the world. And you see that more people are positive.
But people say that I left London and I came and I tested negative at 12 o'clock when I did a PCR test at the airport. First of all, explain to us, I won't take much of it, this is the last question. Yeah. What's the difference between PCR and antigen test? Which one is better?
Well, they are all tests for the virus. One picks up the envelope of the virus, one picks up a certain aspect of the virus.
One picks up the envelope?
Yeah, I mean, so pick the virus. Okay. Say, for the layman, that is actually looks for the virus. One picks up some, what we call a spike protein of the virus, that's the PCR.
So the PCR picks up the spike
protein, yeah.
Spike protein.
Yes.
And then the antigen picks up the the whole virus.
The virus, yes.
So which is sharper?
Well, it depends. You see, it depends on the stage. And we are talking about the particular antigen test at the airport. It has been tested, matched against PCR. And it's almost the same, about 99.9%.
So how does somebody have a negative test and then as soon as he arrives it's positive?
You know, you compare the same sample. If I take you take the smear and test, and then after the following day you take another sample and you test, it is not accurate to say they are different because they are different samples. Okay. Even at the airport, when you test, because you're using the same sample, it's repeated. to be certain that it's positive before you are given.
So you can even have the same sample, 10 up negative in a minute, next be 10 up positive.
And let me tell you, I mean, for example, KLM, you do a PCR negative, but 4 hours before you take off, they want an antigen test because it's a bit more sensitive when you are at the early stage of the virus. And we have also doing what we have because this is a virus that has 2 to 14 days incubation period. What it means is that if I'm leaving London and on Wednesday I test negative for 72 hours and then on Friday I set off to Ghana, I may have contracted the virus after I tested negative.
That's possible, yes.
And I get here, I'll be positive. I may also be incubating at the time that I was negative. And so that's the more reason why we do that. That's why if you go to London, where most of the people have come from, even though you are negative, you go back to your house for 10 days. On the second day you are tested, on the 8th day you are tested. Even if you are negative, you are let out on the 10th day. That tells you that we are dealing with a certain behavior of the virus for which our test must be sure that as much as possible are picked. There are countries that as soon as you enter, irrespective of your PCR results, you're going to quarantine for 2 weeks before you are released.
Yeah.
And so our policy is that we could have said, okay, we'll do some tests for you, go and wait in the hotel for 2 days. When the results come, you go home. Do we have enough room for 2,000 people every day? And so we have to come up with a product that gives us almost the same results as the PCR. So if someone gets up the following morning and go and do his own test and say, oh, I did PCR, it's negative, it's not, that's not part of the protocol.
Okay, so our people should be patient, to be patient. Yes. What would you tell us about the future? Are we, now that we have, after 2 weeks, we have 200 cases down, are we on the path to righteousness?
Well, I think it is too early to say anything. I believe that the numbers are very high, whatever it is, are very high, and we need to start abiding by the protocol short of the vaccine. But the most important thing is that we have ability to be able to get enough vaccines. And we believe that if you have a lot of vaccines and we're able to vaccinate a lot of people in Accra and in Greater Accra and Ashanti region, where about 90% of the cases are, we should be able to bring some control.
And as far as the vaccination is concerned, you're saying that as soon as they are available, you can deliver 6 million, 10 million, you can deliver?
Yes, if they're available, we can deliver.
Do you have hope from what you said? Do you have hope that they are going to be available?
Well, I mean, we have, Ghana has entered into a contract with the AU through the AVAT to get about 16.9 million doses of the AstraZeneca. And that's why we received the first group there. We'll be expecting some Pfizer or Moderna probably by the end of the month or early next month in terms of vaccine. We are also expecting some AstraZeneca, about 249,000.
Are we using some Sputnik? They say we have 20,000. Are we using it?
Yeah, we've used it, yes.
We're using it?
Yes.
And it's fine?
It's fine, I mean.
There's no problem with it?
Well, I haven't heard anything.
That's 2 doses as well?
So we vaccinated about 10,000 people.
On the Sputnik?
On the Sputnik.
Fully vaccinated?
Yes.
The 2 doses?
Yes, the 2 doses.
Oh, I see. Well, were they worried that there was Sputnik and they're afraid or something?
Well, I mean, Sputnik still gives you about 94%
immunity.
Cover, I mean, in terms of
including Delta?
Efficiency. Well, it's quite efficient. Whether so
are we
far,
going to get some more Sputnik? Do you know?
Well, I think it's registered in Ghana. So is Pfizer, so is Moderna, so is Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. What we have now is that we have the ultra-negative capacity. The minister just handed over about 58 of those fridges to us. And so, as we speak now, we can manage any vaccine in the world.
Okay, and the quantities?
And the quantities.
Okay, the fridges.
And every region, yes, every region is going to have enough fridges
to hold them.
To hold enough vaccines.
Okay. You guys
and
are
we are
expecting
some delivery vans, about 18 of them, that will be able to move vaccine between districts as quickly as possible. So if we have the vaccine, we have the machinery and the system to be able
Johnson & Johnson, people will be vaccinated once?
Yes, once.
Have you put up a strategy in place to explain to Ghanaians that when you take Johnson & Johnson, it will be just once and you don't need
I think we started our communication for a while now and we continue. We may not be hearing them in Accra, but in other parts, the districts are talking about them. We've been talking about vaccines all over through fishermen, other communities, chiefs, everywhere, discussing with them.
Okay.
And these are more of community engagement, not necessarily multimedia approaches. And so people are aware, and we'll continue looking at that. That's why we are tomorrow. We'll be doing some training again, because the first time we are going to use Johnson & Johnson, we need to train people and then start the deployment.
Okay. Excellent. Is there any critical question for him, social media editors?
Yes.
Critical. Let's hear it.
So Kwabre Kofi Boache says, please ask him, when do we expect our second jab for those who have already taken the first jab?
First jab of AstraZeneca, I'm guessing.
The second dose.
Those who have taken the first dose of
Yes.
but the time has run away.
Oh,
Are they still able to take a second jab?
Yes. I mean, vaccine gives you the minimum time within which you can take your booster dose.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, we were talking about 12 weeks. But we also know that the first dose provides you protection for 6 months.
Okay.
Plus. And so
within 6 months you can take
it. Can still. Okay. So they are coming, and then we have indications of one from Sweden, one from Covax, and they will be able to cover the number.
We'll leave it here. We have another interview. Thank you, Doc. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much, Doc. Doc, as always, please congratulate him for us and thank him for us. He's always very happy to talk to us when we call him, even though when he usually asks, what time is your show? I said 9 p.m. He says, wow, because he starts at 6 o'clock. Thank you so much, Doc. In the service of Ghana.